I think about that night all the time.
Okay, welcome back to the deep dive. I'm absolutely buzzing about this one because, well, we finally have concrete news about the beginning of the end for one of the biggest shows out there.
Yeah, it really feels like we've been waiting in the Upside Down for this moment, doesn't it? The silence is officially broken.
It really does. And today we're going to take a deep dive into that break, the final season of Stranger Things. We've pulled together the recent announcements, the official word from Netflix's Tudum event, some great coverage in the Hollywood Reporter and Variety.
And yeah, we've also spent some time sifting through the real-time reactions and theories bubbling up on the Stranger Things subreddit. See what the fans are saying.
Exactly. So our mission today is to go beyond just listing the facts. We want to take these sources, unpack the key info about Season 5's release, its scale, those plot hints they've dropped.
And really explore what it all means for the show, for the characters, and, well, for you, the viewer who's been on this journey for, almost a decade now.
Think of this as your shortcut to understanding the shape of the final season and the conversation around it without getting, totally lost in the noise.
Because after what feels like forever since Season 4 left us hanging, getting these official details feels massive.
It really does. So let's jump right into the core announcement. What's the headline news about when we're finally going back to Hawkins?
Okay, so the absolute biggest news is the release plan for the final season. Netflix has confirmed a 3-part strategy stretching the final 8 episodes over the holiday season next year.
Right. Okay, 3 parts. Lay out those dates for us. What does that look like specifically?
So Volume 1 drops on November 26, 2025. That gives you 4 episodes right around the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday.
Ah, interesting timing already, not a summer release like some past seasons then.
Exactly. Then Volume 2 arrives on December 25th, 2025. 3 episodes delivered right on Christmas Day.
Christmas Day. Wow, that's quite a gift. Or maybe a challenge, depending on your holiday plans, I guess.
Precisely. And the very final episode, just a single installment concluding the entire series, lands on December 31st, 2025, New Year's Eve.
So you can ring in the new year by saying goodbye to this whole adventure. And the sources specify a release time for all of these, right?
They do. All parts will hit the service at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Which is 8 p.m. Eastern, so for a huge portion of the audience, that's pretty much prime viewing time, especially on those specific dates.
And this was all unveiled at the Netflix Tudum fan event in L.A., with some key cast members on stage like Finn Wolfhard, Caleb McLaughlin, Noah Schnapp.
Right. Now, as you noted, those holiday release dates, they're the source of a lot of buzz and some pretty strong opinions online. When you look at the fan pulse from those Reddit threads, the reaction is definitely mixed. It's far from universal excitement about the timing.
Yeah, I spent some time in those threads, and you see everything from perfect holiday binge to, real frustration. Let's dig into that. What are the main reasons fans are, excited about or defending these dates?
Well, the positive side often highlights that many people are home, off work or school, maybe making it easier for family viewing.
Or just giving them something major to look forward to on those specific days, like Christmas afternoon or New Year's Eve.
Right. And some people like the spaced out volumes because it allows for discussion and, theory crafting between the drops.
And as you pointed out, that 5 p.m. PST drop means it's live at 8 p.m. on the East Coast, which does help reduce that late-night spoiler anxiety for a big chunk of the audience.
Yeah, I saw comments like, finally, something good to do on Christmas when everyone's just milling around, and at least it drops at a reasonable hour here. But then you have the other side, which seems, quite vocal. What are the biggest complaints about this holiday timing?
The main complaints really revolve around inconvenience. People are traveling, hosting, cooking, dealing with family stuff during the holidays.
Yeah, trying to fit in watching a huge show like Stranger Things feels stressful, or maybe impossible for some.
And that inability to watch immediately fuels major spoiler anxiety, Plus, there's this strong undercurrent that Netflix is stretching out the final season, specifically to keep subscriptions active over the holidays.
Which some fans see as kind of milking the series rather than giving it a traditional, concentrated final release.
Exactly. They feel it should be a summer release, or if they're going to split it, maybe just do weekly episodes like lots of other streamers do now.
That milking sentiment is definitely strong. Some users were pretty blunt, saying if Netflix wants engagement, they should just commit to weekly releases and not do this, weird 3-part holiday thing.
It does feel deliberate, this timing, and potentially disruptive for the audience. So given that potential backlash or inconvenience, what do the sources suggest about Netflix's strategy here? Why push it onto these specific, potentially busy days?
Well, the sources sort of hint that this strategy is absolutely about maximizing buzz and engagement at key social moments. A release spread across Thanksgiving week, Christmas, and New Year's Eve ensures Stranger Things is front of mind when people are gathered looking for entertainment.
And most likely to talk about what they're watching, right? It's a move designed for maximum cultural impact and conversation volume, even if it means some individuals feel inconvenienced.
So it suggests Netflix is maybe prioritizing that collective event feeling over the ideal viewing experience for every single fan. It's a big bet on the power of shared holiday viewing moments, I suppose.
Seems like it.
Yeah.
Okay, let's pivot from the when to the what. The Duffer Brothers have been talking about the scope and scale of this final season, and their descriptions are pretty striking. What did the sources reveal they've said about the ambition of Season 5?
Ross Duffer, speaking earlier in the year, described it in really immense terms. He mentioned spending a full year filming and capturing over 650 hours of footage for just 8 episodes.
Whoa, hold on. 650 hours of footage for 8 episodes. That number alone is just staggering. It implies a scale and complexity that's kind of hard to even picture.
Totally massive. But Matt Duffer added a crucial, almost contrasting point. He said, quote, "At the same time, we think it's our most personal story." He talked about filming being super intense and emotional for the cast and crew, noting there was so much crying.
That juxtaposition is really interesting, isn't it? How do you reconcile something being like 8 blockbuster movies with it also being the most personal story and causing so much crying? What do you think that dynamic suggests about how they're approaching the finale?
Well, I think it suggests the external, world-ending threat and those massive action sequences aren't happening separate from the characters' emotional journeys, but are deeply intertwined with them.
Right, so the enormous scale might actually serve to heighten the personal stakes.
Yeah.
Like, imagine the biggest possible threat pushing the characters to their absolute limits, forcing deeply emotional decisions and sacrifices.
Yeah, and that so much crying detail really hints that the emotional payoff or maybe the cost of this massive battle will be profound for the characters and presumably for us, the audience who's grown up with them.
And to emphasize that blend, the sources quoted the writer's room describing the tone as if Season 1 and 4 had a baby that was then injected with steroids.
Ha! That's a wonderfully weird and descriptive phrase. Season 1 was that intimate, character-driven mystery starting with Will's disappearance. Season 4 just exploded the scope, introduced Vecna, embraced horror and large-scale mythology.
So combining the personal, intimate stakes of Season 1 with the sprawling, horror-infused action of Season 4 and then boosting it with steroids, yeah, that definitely paints a picture of an ending that is both terrifyingly large and deeply rooted in where it all began.
Okay, let's talk narrative specifics. There's a confirmed time jump, which, makes sense given the practicalities you mentioned earlier about the actors aging.
Yes. The show picks up a little over a year after the end of Season 4. Season 4 concluded in March 1986, so Season 5 is set in the fall of 1987. And yeah, the Duffer Brothers confirmed this jump was necessary, partly because the young actors have aged. They couldn't feasibly shoot 4 and 5 back-to-back.
Right, makes sense.
Okay.
So where do we find our heroes and Hawkins at the start of this final chapter, based on what the sources say?
Well, the official synopsis paints a pretty bleak picture. Hawkins is scarred by the rifts from the Upside Down. The heroes are united with a clear mission: find and kill Vecna, who has apparently mysteriously vanished after his Season 4 defeat.
Vanished. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
And meanwhile, the government has quarantined Hawkins and is intensely hunting Eleven, forcing her into hiding. There's also the weight of the anniversary of Will's disappearance looming, adding this layer of heady, familiar dread.
Ugh.
It's all building towards a final battle against a darkness more powerful and more deadly than anything they've faced before. And to succeed, it states, they need everyone, the full party, standing together one last time.
Wow, that phrase, full party standing together one last time, is powerful, especially for fans of the D&D elements. And the sources mentioned that 25-page mythology document the Duffers created way back in the early days, right? How does that connect to the end?
Ross Duffer specifically stated that the final season will explicitly address and answer the last remaining questions from that original mythology document. He promised big reveals.
So we're not just getting a new story, but like a resolution to the foundational mysteries. Questions about the Upside Down's origins, Vecna's ultimate connection to it, maybe even the true nature of the Mind Flayer. these should finally get answers rather than just being left to interpretation.
That's definitely the expectation the sources create. After years of building this world and its lore, the promise is that Season 5 will provide definitive answers to the foundational mysteries they planned from the beginning. Thinking about that, what's one lingering question you've been hoping they'll finally tackle from that mythology?
For me, it's maybe less about a specific plot point and more about the nature of the Upside Down itself. Like, is it a parallel dimension that's always existed, or was it created or somehow shaped by Vecna? And how does its whole stagnant, decaying nature fit into the mythology? That feels like a core piece that's still kind of fuzzy.
That's a great one. And we've actually got some episode titles that might offer some hints or at least fuel more speculation.
Oh, yeah. What have we got?
We have several titles revealed. They include The Crawl, The Turnbow Trap, Sorcerer, Shock Jock, Escape from Camazotz, The Bridge, and The Right Side Up.
Okay, interesting.
But what's particularly notable is the title for Episode 2, which is intentionally censored and listed as The Vanishing of.
Ah, The Vanishing of. That's classic Stranger Things echoing the vanishing of Will Byers.
Oh, yeah.
That feels significant, doesn't it? And Camazotz immediately sparked online discussions. I saw that.
It did. Camazotz is the name of a bat god in Maya mythology, associated with darkness and caves. Given the show's history of drawing from mythology and D&D and stuff, that title alone suggests potential locations, creatures, or thematic elements. These titles always feel like little breadcrumbs for fan theories, you know?
Totally. Okay, let's spotlight a couple of characters who seem really central to the conversation surrounding the final season. The full main cast is back, which is great news, plus notable additions like Linda Hamilton and Amy Beth McNulty getting promoted. But Will Byers keeps coming up.
He really does. Will is a major focus in the fan discussions, and those teasers seem to reinforce the idea that his connection to the Upside Down, which started everything, right, will be central to the final confrontation. Many believe his link to the Mind Flayer will pay off in a really major way.
Right. And the teaser trailer released at Toodum, it was mostly old footage, but it had that one really chilling moment with Will screaming, "Run!" What was the fan reaction to that specific soundbite?
Oh, on Reddit, users found it incredibly impactful. Really chilling. It immediately fueled theories about Will potentially being possessed or transformed.
Or maybe that scream is tied to a critical, perhaps sacrificial moment for his character.
Exactly. That sound alone seemed to confirm for many fans that Will's story isn't just being wrapped up, but is absolutely key to the ending.
Given that the show literally began with the vanishing of Will Byers, does it feel narratively resonant or even, like, necessary for his character to be at the forefront of the final fight?
I think it feels like a powerful full-circle moment. The character who was the catalyst for the entire saga, the first victim pulled into the Upside Down's orbit. Having him return to a central position for the final confrontation feels right. It gives his journey, which has often involved him being a conduit or a victim, a chance for maybe a more active resolution. It brings us right back to the origin of the mystery.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then there's Max. We know Sadie Sink is involved, but her character is, well, in a coma in the hospital at the end of season 4. How do the sources explain her role? This is a big question mark.
Yeah, it is. Matt Duffer confirmed that Sadie Sink will play a part in this season. He also mentioned filming an absolutely heartbreaking scene involving her, but crucially, he explicitly stated they are not revealing how that's possible given her coma status.
Okay, so that's a deliberate mystery straight from the creators. It really forces you to think within the show's logic. How can a character in a persistent coma play a part? What are the narrative possibilities here based on what we know about the show?
It immediately raises questions, right? Is it flashbacks? Is it something happening in some kind of psychic space, maybe through Eleven's powers, or even some connection Max might have maintained to the Upside Down after her whole ordeal with Vecna? And the fact that they filmed a heartbreaking scene also suggests it's not just like a brief cameo or a simple recovery montage. It sounds emotionally significant. Perhaps a difficult choice has to be made regarding her. Or maybe she experiences something deeply painful despite her physical state. It's definitely one of the biggest character question marks going into the season.
For sure. Now, just to put the weight into perspective, let's briefly touch on the long road to getting this final season made. The behind-the-scenes timeline really highlights just how massive this undertaking has been.
Yeah, writing for Season 5 actually began surprisingly early, back in August 2022, shortly after Season 4 Volume 2 dropped. But production itself, the actual filming, took a full year, wrapping up in December 2024.
And of course, the WGA strike in 2023 caused significant delays in the writing process, too.
Right, that pushed things back. One detail from the sources that really stood out to me was about Frank Darabont, the legendary director of The Shawshank Redemption.
Oh, yeah, what was that?
Well, Darabont, who was essentially retired from directing, actually came back specifically to direct 2 episodes of the final season.
No way. Why?
The sources noted he did so because he and his wife are huge fans of the show, and he particularly praised its heart, finding it refreshing compared to what he described as a lot of modern content now that is filled with horrible people.
Wow, what an endorsement. Coming out of retirement because he loved the show's emotional core so much. That's amazing.
Isn't it? And you mentioned earlier that filming involved so much crying. How do you think that long, demanding process, spanning nearly a decade, for the cast who literally grew up making this show, contributes to that emotional weight, both on set and for the final product?
Well, I mean, for the actors, many of whom were actual children when this started, these characters in this group have been central to their lives for nearly 10 years. Saying goodbye isn't just finishing a job, it's ending a massive, formative chapter of their lives.
That emotional reality for the cast, it has to filter into their performances and the scenes they're shooting, right?
Absolutely. And for the audience, who have also lived with this show for a decade, watching these actors and characters grow up alongside them adds another layer of emotional resonance to the final farewell. It really feels like a shared journey ending.
Yeah, definitely. And that emotional investment is reflected in the reaction to the recent marketing, too. We got that missing person poster for 11 Jane Hopper back in January, and then the short teaser trailer at Tudum.
Right, the teaser, which notably was composed almost entirely of clips from previous seasons with only a few brief flashes of new footage or sound.
So what was the fan reaction to that approach? Was the minimal new footage frustrating or appreciated?
It was definitely mixed, reflecting that split desire we talked about earlier. Some fans were openly disappointed, calling it just a recap or feeling teased and wanting more new material after the long wait. They felt it didn't show enough of the new final season.
But others defended it, arguing that this far out from the release, maybe a true teaser with minimal spoilers, is exactly what they wanted. They appreciated not having key plot points revealed yet.
Makes sense. But even those minimal flashes spark theories, right?
Oh, absolutely. That single soundbite of Will screaming "run" reignited all the speculation about his arc we just discussed. And some sharp-eared fans picked up on what they thought sounded like a deep, gurgling roar in the background of one moment.
Oh, really? What did they think that was?
Well, it immediately led to speculation about a new upside-down creature, perhaps linked to the show's D&D origins or even Will's painting from Season 4. Some were theorizing it could be an upside-down dragon.
Dragon. Okay, then that would be something. So even a sparse teaser can really fuel the engine of anticipation in theory.
Totally. So let's try and bring it all together. We've unpacked the core news from the sources. We now have the official end date, or rather jates, for this whole saga. A 3-part rollout hitting Thanksgiving week, Christmas, and New Year's Eve 2025, dropping at 5 p.m. PST.
Yep. And we know the Duffer Brothers are promising a season of unprecedented scale, like 8 blockbuster movies. But also stressing it's their most personal story, filmed with so much crying, suggesting the massive stakes are deeply tied to the characters' emotional arcs.
There's that time jump putting us in the fall of 1987, with the core premise being finding and destroying the vanished Vecna in a quarantined Hawkins scarred by the rifts, leading to a final all-or-nothing battle involving the full party.
And crucially, the final season is set to answer the last remaining questions from the show's original mythology document. That feels huge.
Big time. We have the full returning cast back, plus exciting new additions like Linda Hamilton, and their specific narrative focus teased for Will Byers, bringing his journey potentially full circle to the center of the conflict.
And that deliberate mystery of how Max will play a part despite her coma. Still thinking about that one.
Me too. The long, emotional production journey, including those strike delays, and a legendary director coming out of retirement because he loved the show's heart, really underscores the significance of this final chapter for everyone involved, creators, cast, crew, all of them.
The wait has been long, hasn't it? But the end of this, decade-long adventure is truly on the horizon now.
It really is.
And as we anticipate this conclusion, here's something to maybe think about. The creators poured nearly 10 years of their lives into telling this story, and the actors literally grew up living these roles. The sources keep mentioning this season felt most personal and involved so much crying during filming. What does it mean, then, for a story that has been such a defining part of so many people's lives? Those who made it and those of us who watched it evolve alongside our own lives for a decade to finally reach its end. What kind of emotional weight does that carry beyond just, like, the plot resolution?